Season's greetings, and I'm really happy. This is the first time that I've videotaped the creation of my annual Christmas card. I'm using black Stonehenge watercolor paper, the hot press. I'll be using white Pan Pastels, white charcoal pencil, and black pastel pencil, and a variety of soft tools and sponges, not that many. Actually, I think I'm mostly just using the oval applicator tool from Soft Tools and a finger sponge. Apologize for that strange orange thing up there. I have a soft sponge holding up my telephone so that it will lay more evenly, and I didn't realize how close it was. When I was watching it, I didn't see this at all. But you'll start to ignore it after a little while. I'm using some of my own Tomte, and we call them Tomte because, oh well, we're Swedish. Most folks call them Gnomes. So I'm using some of the gnomes that I have. See, aren't that cute? That cute little couple? I just got all of those recently. And we'll be featuring a drawing of Renard, mon petit chien rouge, my little red dog, who features in all of my Christmas cards for the last, I think, 8 years. I'm using a white charcoal pencil from Generals to draw out first Renard, and then I'll build the gnomes around him. Now, I have his photograph sitting there in front of me, but I've done his image so many times that I barely look at it. And I didn't narrate this when I started videotaping it. I was whistling Christmas carols. But I thought I'd go for talking to you about my little Renard and our gnomes and our tradition of doing Christmas cards. Every year at the library, I give all of my co-workers my limited edition Christmas cards featuring Renard. Sometimes we feature some of his cousins. This time I am featuring just Renard, and here I'm trying to decide if the hat's going to cover both of his eyes or just one of them, because all the gnomes have both their eyes covered. Yep, there we go. We're going to leave that left eye exposed so he can see better. But Renard is so sweet. If you put a hat on that dog's head, he will just sit there and sit there and sit there and leave it alone. I believe that Renard is now 14 years old. He came to my backyard when I was living in South Georgia, and he moved in. He was a little 5-pound starving, flea-bit, ant-bit, adorable little dog who thought nothing about walking into my kitchen. So I knew that he was used to people. But nobody claimed him. So with the help of my friend Dusty, he became part of my family. I'm drawing in the body of the first gnome that I showed you. And it's really a lot of fun to work with the white pastel. I can create lovely grays and shades of gray just with that oval applicator tool or any of the single applicator tools. And it's not a photorealistic style. It's not even a photographic style. It's more of a grisaille, which is a French word for gray. It's a gray underpainting, and that's what the word is for. And generally with the underpaintings, you then add color. But in these, it's all gray. It stays shades of gray, and I really enjoy it. Now, if you're somebody who has trouble with color, this is a wonderful way to work. You don't have to worry about anything but lights and darks. You don't have to worry about what color bounces off which color and which works together and how to create shadows using color. You just get right to it. And if you're somebody who suffers from arthritis in your hands, you may find working with the Pan Pastels and working specifically with just white on black paper much easier. I too have arthritis in my fingers, and working with pastels, the Pan Pastels in particular, has been wonderful. I can work much more quickly, and I can create some wonderful interest. Just love those noses. So I'm guessing that there's enough of a gap in those hats so those gnomes can see through. You know, you squint your eyes under a mask sometimes. I'm thinking they squint their eyes and tilt their heads back a little so they can see what's going on under those hats. See, all of the gnomes are posing for me, so all the gnomes are being drawn from real life. Only Renard is from a photograph and from my memory. And I've left the pencil line drawing, the outline drawing on it, because I liked it. So when you see the completed work, you'll also see some of the line work still there, and that's just because I like it that way. Now, of course, if you're doing something like this, you could take a photograph and not work from life if you feel intimidated by working from life, and a lot of people do because they're not used to it. You can take a photograph of your composition, and then you can print it out and trace it onto the paper using white transfer paper or black transfer paper, depending upon the color of the paper you're using. Or you can create a grid and use a grid to draw it. But in this case, I didn't even have a full composition. I was just deciding as I went what I wanted to put and where. I only have 5 gnomes, but one of the gnomes is really big. It's actually got the bottom half of it is actually a light. My sister just gave me that one. But it's a good 15 inches tall and would be much too tall for this composition. And there is Brewster barking in the background. Brewster is our chunky Chihuahua. He's a couple of years younger than Renard, and he featured in some of my past Christmas cards. And I've done a lot of portraits of Brewster, so it's not like he's neglected. I have, in fact, at least one tutorial or demonstration on YouTube, and I painted his portrait using Jane Davenport pastels. And I have done him so many times, I don't even need to look at the photos anymore. This one is actually from Rosemary as well. When I went out to return something for me, she told me to buy myself a Tomte, so I chose this Tomte. I bought the two on the left myself. I ordered them online because I just wanted to add them to my studio, and I have to be careful or my studio will be overpopulated by gnomes, Tomtes, little elves. And the one up front is one that was given to me for Valentine's Day. No, my birthday. For my birthday. From my nephew and his fiance. Well, we have to be realistic. Mostly it's from she picked it out. Cammy picked it out, I think. But they shop together, so I'm giving them both credit for picking them out. Now I'm filling in all the wonderful fur for my Renard, just using the oval applicator brush. And I have to say, and I have two, because sometimes I work with color and white, so I'll move back and forth between warm colors and cool colors in the Pan Pastels. Yes, Brewster, we hear you. And they're wonderful, and I'll do most of my work using this applicator. And I have many, many, many sponges. I buy extra sponges for this one, the sponge covers, because I run through them. But not as much now that I stopped using sanded paper. Now I only use Canson's and Artigan and the Stonehenge watercolor paper. And I'm just trying to keep the fur going in the direction that the fur falls. He's still barking, but it's not as loud. I shut the door. There's a little Tomte head tipping over there. Okay. Now, as you're applying the Pan Pastel with the applicator, of course, what you first pick up goes on the paper, and it's there. It comes down in one large lump, and then as you blend it down, you get shades of gray. If you want to make it more smooth in the application, I recommend you wipe it on a piece of copy paper first and then work on layering it in smoothly, but that's not how I use the pastel. I lay it down and I create shade and dimension by laying down the lighter area first and blending it in and creating dark and light areas. And that's the way I like to work. Everybody has to find the way that they like to work. And Renard likes me to work that way too. He said it tickles a little, but he really enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm working on a 10 by 14 paper, the Stonehenge hot press black watercolor paper, but this one is larger, the 10 by 18. I usually work on a 9 by 12, but I wanted more space. When I draw, I tend to draw larger, so I knew I would never get them all on a 9 by 12 unless I traced. And I didn't want to go to all that work. I wanted to enjoy drawing freehand or doing a light sketch as I did in this one. Now, I thought about making his hat fancier, but then in the end I decided it would just be a simple hat. He's so beautiful that he really doesn't need a lot of accessorizing. And I thought of making it a Santa hat, but then I decided no, I want it to be a Tomte hat. And actually, in all the old art, 19th, early 20th century illustrations of Tomtes by, I think it's Jenny Nielsen, who did the definitive illustrations of the Tomte. The hats are plain. The clothing is simple. They have belts. Not very much else. And I know I'm confusing you by going back and forth between gnome and Tomte, but when you're Swedish, the Tomte are part of your family. According to legend, for people who live in the country, the Tomte lives in the barn and protects the family. City folk don't normally have them, but when the farm people left Sweden, now this is my supposition, when they left Sweden and Norway and Denmark and came to the United States, so many of these people were farmers, the Tomte just came along with them and took up residence in their farms and in their barns. But I think our belief in them is so strong, and then our wonderful addiction in this country to garden gnomes is giving them a new life. So these are my little family protectors. Just working around. When you catch the image at the end, you'll see that I did fill in the snowflake with white pencil, but it's not recorded. But I didn't do anything with the background. I left the background exactly as you'll see it here. And this video is just shy of an hour. And of course, if we're moving too slowly for you, you can fast forward or skip ahead. I didn't want to do this as a time lapse. I did want you to see exactly how I create my Christmas cards. And as I said, this is the first time that I've actually taped it. Using an eraser, this is a typewriter eraser or a pencil eraser. So in the olden days, when we had typing classes on what were regular typewriters, not computers, paper would be in the machine, because I'm sure a lot of you haven't seen an actual typewriter except possibly on TV in old movies. So when you made a mistake, you go to the line on the paper that's in the typewriter and you erase it and carefully line it up again, the typewriter and the words, and retype the letter or letters. There's a brush on the end of this typewriter pencil and you brush away the crumbs from the erasure. I have lots of different kinds of erasers that I use. This happened to be what I thought would be most fun for this particular project. I have mono erasers and Statler erasers. I have square erasers and kneadable erasers, plastic erasers. I have an electric eraser, which I don't use that often actually. I thought I would use it more than I did, and perhaps I will in the future, but it works pretty quickly. Kind of cool. I just worry that I'll overdo it and rub away paper. It's just a woven pattern in the fabric that was used to make this tomte or gnome, and I'm replicating it sort of. As you watch, you can see that the eraser isn't picking up everything. There's a gray tone left behind, and that's exactly what I wanted. I'd use a harder, stronger application of the eraser if I wanted to go pure black, or I'd go over it again with the black pencil. Little shaking of the table as I move my eraser back and forth. I'm using the edge of the oval applicator. It really works very nicely to give me more narrow lines. Not fine lines, but narrow lines. It's very nice that all of the gnomes have white hair. It's funny, every time I do a project, or almost every time I'm doing a project on black paper with a white pastel, I'm inventing my approach. I have no idea just how I'm going to get the shades of gray that I want, and not quite sure what tools I'm going to use. So sometimes I look back at videos of the work that I've done to see what I did that time because I can't remember. And I haven't looked at this picture and said, well, I'm going to do this or that or the other thing. I've just started with Renard because I knew that's where I should start. And then I moved around from there. I would have thought logically that I would work on the Tomtes in the back and build over them, but that's not the way I went. The one thing that is a constant in working with applying pastels to black paper is that I always start with the highlighted area and blend down and away to create the grays. I think with most pastel artists, the finger is the favorite blending tool. I do believe this is my best Christmas card ever. And I just love as I'm working on it, drawing it, watching it come alive and take form. And there's a pattern on the Tomte that I'm using, so I decided I would replicate this pattern as well. And I'm just using the eraser, but tapping on the pastel that's there to create a texture. And I'm highlighting those ridges so that you can see that they're raised, that they're higher than the rest of the fabric. Now I am staring. Okay. I have to take a stop every once in a while to look at what I'm doing and decide what my next move is. If I need to redo something or add something to something somewhere else before I move on. Here it is, almost December, and I haven't done any of my Christmas shopping, much less thought about what I would like to give anyone. Except, of course, for this card. This card is a gift for all of my coworkers and for friends. And they are always curious to find out what pose Renard is going to strike in his Christmas card. Now I'm using the applicator tool, the tip, to just apply dots. Now we're back to finishing up the wonderful fur of Renard. I'm putting in finer lines and curves and flowing fur because he has beautiful flowing fur. The tools actually really do work very much like paintbrushes. The combination of paintbrushes and pencils. And if working in white on black paper is something you're interested in, this is a relatively inexpensive way to go. The papers will vary in cost, and you can use the Canson papers and the Artigan black papers and black watercolor paper, whichever one you like. And I have a tin of Pan Pastels in white and white charcoal pencil or white pastel pencil, whichever you like or happen to have, a black pastel pencil or black charcoal pencil, and erasers. Now I have many different kinds of tools depending upon what image I'm doing. I've purchased a lot of different ones so that I could use them, see what I like best, and I find I use most of them uh, depending upon what I'm doing, what effect I'm trying to get. But I use most often the oval applicator tool. And again, this is a 10 by 14 paper, so it's a little bit larger than what I usually do, which is a 9 by 12. And I'm using the eraser to draw in shadows between the hairs on the fur. And now I'm finally bringing in the black pastel pencil. Except to darken areas of the nose. It's not completely black. And I'll bring in the white pencil to put in some tiny highlights. And I'm going to use that to add more hair. And let's not forget the little gleam in Renard's eye. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And this is my Renard, Mon Petit Chien Rouge, and his first official photograph when he came to live with me. And here he is, 10.5 years later, posing for his 6th or 7th or 8th Christmas card, because every year he creates a new Christmas card to share with our friends. Thank you for joining us. A happy holiday season to each and every one of you.